But yeah, I think that Silicon Valley and Hollywood and Washington are all, they're all about illusion. They're about ratings or clicks. They have very similar qualities. And I have a piece in here interviewing Elon in 2017 when he and Sam Altman started OpenAI. And, he was a very different person then. He was anti-Trump, and the piece is about whether AI will kill us, basically. And Elon opened OpenAI to be an advocate for humanity. He wanted to, help carbon-based beings. And that's why he wants to go to Mars, because he thought we could run away there from AI. And then one of the other AI geniuses explained to him that AI could just follow him to Mars because it's in the air. And Elon was really shocked. But Elon always says he wants to die on Mars, just not on impact.
I'd like to stick with your writing for a little bit longer. So we have a collection here, but it does seem like you're looking for that kind of charismatic factor, but it's a little, as you say, they traffic in illusion, and it's not so easy for us to know. How do you choose your subjects?
Well, just to, the reason I got interested in this was when I was 13, my older brother took me to see Hamlet in the park in DC, and I immediately decided Hamlet was my boyfriend, not knowing that Hamlet is the worst boyfriend in literary history, right? And
Can you just give it a rest, please?
Yeah, I know.
Decide what to order?
Right, he was more ambivalent about me than anyone, but it was not a happy relationship. But I got fascinated with why did he act like that? He had everything. He had looks, he had power, he had a great girlfriend, and he just threw it all away. So that was one thing. Then my brother took me to AFI, American Film Institute, used to be in the Kennedy Center, which we now call the Trump Center. And, he would take me to Shane and American in Paris, and I saw all the classic movies, and I just got really fascinated with star power. And that's why in politics, when Barack Obama first came on the scene, I just got on the bus with him and stayed out for a year, because I was totally fascinated with this young prince who didn't have much experience, but he had star power, and he was taking on the queen. And, it was very much like a Shakespeare usurping play. And so anyway, that's how I got fascinated with how stars become stars and how they use their power or abuse it.
Yeah. Well, and you've spoken about situations, you don't know, you're there, they have this charismatic patina, but are they going to, and you've talked about interviews where a lot of celebrities will give you what I think you call a well-rehearsed riff. I want to stick with your writing now. So you encounter someone like that, they're giving you a line. What do you think? What do you do? How do you penetrate it?
Well, as a political reporter, that used to happen a lot with politicians. So in the 80s or 90s, I guess I might have started with around the time when Bush Sr. was running, I decided you just have to get them off their topics where they can stick a tape in and say the same thing that they've said to a million other people. So I began asking them about culture, like what TV do you watch, what movies do you like, who was your favorite actress when you were young, and it got really funny answers, because George W. Bush, I said, what is your favorite cultural experience? And he said, baseball. And his favorite show is Cats, which Trump rhapsodized about when he went down to the Kennedy Center the other day. Trump was rhapsodizing about the men and women and their beautiful bodies in gold tights the first time he saw Cats. He wants to bring cats to the Kennedy Center. And he wants to change the Kennedy Center honors so that they go to dead people like Elvis and Babe Ruth and Pavarotti. So,
She's not joking, I think they're, yeah.
no, that's not it. So, so I thought of this thing, this cultural quiz, and they were so, off-center that they would give interesting answers, and it would be easier for me to see what kind of person they were. Were they funny? Were they charming? Did they have any life besides politics? So when I started doing these longer styles pieces at the Times about actors and tech gods, lords of the cloud and stuff, I wanted to do the same thing. So I thought of this little feature at the end called Confirm or Deny. So it's very gentle. It's not like Truth or Dare. It's more, I got it from the name from an old Don Amici movie. And, it's kind of Dada. I just think of like wacky things, and then I ask them, and then they're kind of off-center, and then you get interesting stuff. So for instance, I was interviewing Jane Fonda, and just for fun, this had, oftentimes the confirm and deny doesn't have basis in fact, it's just like some over-the-top thing. And I said, you always went to sleep with Che Guevara. It's just over the top. And so Jane Fonda looks at me and she goes, no, I always wanted to sleep with Marvin Gaye. And she said, Marvin Gaye wanted to sleep with me, and I didn't do it because I was married to Tom Hayden. I heard he had a crush on me. I heard he had my picture in her exercise gear in his refrigerator. And she went on about how this was a great regret in her life. So, you're asking kind of wacky things. Like with Larry David, he told me he always keeps brush picks, to floss in his pocket, and he likes to throw his gum in the fireplace. They're small, but I always advise young reporters dare to be trivial, because you learn a lot about people in these little color things. And the only person I couldn't really get this to work with was Denzel Washington, because I was trying to explain the conceit of confirm or deny, and I go, it's just Dada, it's just silly, it's just to have fun and be funny and charming. And he was looking at me like that Denzel look from Training Day. And I was starting to get scared, and then I was like babbling, and he goes, if it's silly, why do you do it? But then one of my things with him was like his favorite ice cream, and his whole face lit up. I mean, he could have talked about ice cream for hours. So it is weird, but you do kind of get a better glimpse of who the people are.
As hopefully it wouldn't be so much today to step up to a management role. How did your own trajectory go?
Nobody wants me managing. No! I can't even manage myself. No, that is not a good idea. I had a really hard time writing a column. That when they gave me that, I was only the second woman after Anna Quinlan to have, in modern history, yeah. So,
who are you thinking of now?
Well, I'm trying to remember. Well, there were other cultural columns, but anyway, I was, basically they needed a woman, and I didn't want to pass up the opportunity because it was a great opportunity for women to make that breakthrough. But at the same time, it's not natural to me to kind of lecture people and tell them what to think, and I kept trying to report it and have other voices, and Anna Quinlan and Tom Friedman, who are my friends, came to me and said, when the column is so short, it's 800 words, that you can only have your own voice. You've got to stop putting other voices in there. So I did it for quite a long time, but then I asked them, isn't there a way for me to do something longer where I can talk to other people? Because that's what I like to do. I like to hear someone else talking. I don't want to be talking and lecturing, which is what a column is. It's a polemic. And at 800 words, there's not much else you can do with it. I mean, we're at an important period of history, so it's good. It's good to have a column, but it's really fun for me. That's my favorite thing to do, is to ask the questions rather than be giving the answers.
Got it. So did you feel her a kind of particular kindred spirit?
Yeah, you know, I interviewed Tina Fey when she was doing the Sarah Palin imitation, and Sarah Palin was coming on SNL. And it's a truth generally acknowledged in comedy that that was one of the best impressions ever. It was so incredible. And, you know, it was complicated for her to do that because the cast of SNL is mostly liberal, and when somebody like, when Trump would host or Sarah Palin would come on for a guest thing with Tina Fey, you know, the cast was ambivalent about that because sometimes they didn't want to showcase a Republican and help them, because Will Ferrell thinks his impression of George W. Bush helped Bush win because it was wacky, but it humanized W, and people loved the impression, and so they worry that they are affecting elections. And, you know, the most interesting thing with Tina Fey, and it was very, very hard to get this information, was, you know, she has kind of a scar. And I had to figure out, you know, I interviewed her husband and talked to some other people, and when she was 5, she was living in suburban Philadelphia, and a guy just walked into the yard, and she thought he was using a magic marker or something on her cheek, and he sliced her whole face open. And, you know, it was a very traumatic thing for her. You could see the scar. I mean, I think it made her lovelier. But she had a daughter, and the daughter was about to turn 5, and she said her therapist told her when her daughter turned 5, Tina Fey would go nuts because she would start reliving this and worrying about it with her daughter. And, you know, it's that kind of thing. Here's this woman who's making us all laugh, and then she had to go through that. So, you know, Tina Fey is a fascinating character. I'm always fascinated with comedians, how they do it and, you know, what they go through. In her case, she was kind of, she had weighed 30 pounds more, and she was kind of a behind-the-scenes writer. So she lost the 30 pounds, and everyone was like, well, she's hot, she can do Weekend Update, Lorne Michaels said. So, and then she became a leading lady. So that is like a real Cinderella story. She took her own fate in her hands and got the life she wanted.
You know, I remember that Sarah Palin time. It was so, it was like a tornado, and her great line was that Sarah Palin had to lose because otherwise Tina Fey was going to have to leave, and I mean the planet Earth.
Well, you know, it was so crazy because I was covering Tina Fey at the same time I was covering Obama versus McCain, and McCain was coming on SNL, and Tina Fey was playing his vice president, and the whole thing was so surreal. Even Lorne Michaels couldn't believe it. He was kind of in a state of shock about the whole thing. And, you know, again, there were a lot of very layered questions with cast members. Were they helping? Were they helping people that they didn't want to be in office? And so that, you know, that was very fascinating because it was right in the middle of the 2008 campaign that I did that.
So let me start with Elon Musk. He's actually in the book, and I thought it was commendable of you to include the essay because it was, as you've averted, pretty positive. It portrayed him as kind of a visionary. He was a political moderate who, you know, wanted to engage with Trump to make him less extreme, or so it seemed, who mainly wants to save humanity. Okay, so that picture, as you know, has soured. And now, you know, we see him as, I think we all do, as a right-wing kind of crank who embraces racist conspiracies and has a sort of demonic side. So I guess my question is whether there's a moment and we're talking 2017, your interview with him, that in hindsight, you think that was particularly revealing of the Musk that we see today?
Yeah, actually, there are two anecdotes, and neither of them were in the Musk essay. The Musk essay was about the moment that is coming soon where AI is going to be smarter than us. And so it had nothing to do with politics. At that point, the Lords of the Cloud in Silicon Valley, they were acting like Washington didn't exist. They vaguely knew there was this capital of the country where they might try to regulate them. But basically, these guys are high on their own supply. They are creating a new species. And, you know, AI is in its teenage years now, but pretty soon, you know, these are they call them our mind children. You know, they're going to be taking over. And Steve Wozniak, you know, the Apple protege, Steve Jobs' protege, you know, told me that he started feeding his dog filet mignon because he realizes when AI gets smarter than us, we're going to be like the family pets. And my overwhelming impression of Silicon Valley was that most of them, except Elon, and at that point Sam Altman, although he has changed, which is why they're in a big lawsuit now, which is coming to trial, most of them were very fatalistic. They had already accepted the idea that we would have AI overlords, and that, you know, they thought of us as old technology, like ants in their experiments. But so this was the topic of Elon in the book, and I think this essay is really important because when you see the fight which is going on with Trump about between Sam Altman and Elon Musk, this is the origin story of that, and it's existential. It has to do with whether we will exist and who wants us to still exist and who doesn't. But the two anecdotes that are most revealing of Elon are in the essay about the interview with Peter Thiel. So Peter Thiel and Elon started PayPal. And so, you know, they were young, they were geniuses, and there was a weekly poker game at PayPal. And Elon gets in one night and he bets everything on every hand. And afterwards, Peter is like, what kind of strategy was that? And Elon goes, well, I don't know how to play poker. And I think you see that in his behavior in Washington. And Peter Thiel also told the story that he had just bought a new F1 McLaren sports car. So new, he hadn't even had time to get insurance, and they weren't wearing seatbelts, and Elon jumps in and like is, let's go for a ride. So they go for a ride. Elon goes really, really fast. The car takes flight, and they do a 360-degree turn. And Peter Thiel said it was astonishing that they lived through it. And again, that's Elon. That's the Elon you're seeing in Washington. And Peter Thiel predicted that even though Elon did not like Trump at that point, that they would get together, because he said they were both grandmaster salesmen, grandmaster chess salesmen, and larger than life figures, and that eventually they would be drawn together. And you know, all the reporters in Washington were like, they're gonna break up, they're like supernovas, they're gonna collide, they can't be in the same universe. And I talked to the guys in Silicon Valley, and Jaron Lanier, you know, I told you about him, the father of virtual reality, was like, no. He goes, Elon and Trump know exactly what they're getting from this relationship, and they like it. And the people there did not think they would break up, and in fact, they haven't. I mean, Elon is practically in the Lincoln bedroom at this point. It's almost like he's the first lady, you know, in terms of oftentimes the first lady plays the role of the lightning rod, you know, and that's what Elon is to Trump. Danger to democracy in his first term, as some of my colleagues were. But when the Doge kids showed up, that really was, you know, I was born in Washington, and to have this wolf pack of kids with backpacks and pizzas running around, either sneaking into government agencies or demanding to be led into government agencies to look at the absolute most sensitive information we have, including
People who say no are fired the next day, by the
yeah,
way.
taxpayer information, and it's a very creepy McCarthy-esque thing of naming names and taking names and going after people who in any way, FBI agents who were involved in January 6 cases or DEI, or, they're putting out lists, not Doge, but Hegseth put out a list of banned words, and for a minute they banned Enola Gay, because it had the word gay in it. And, I am worried about democracy now, to be honest. But the thing about Trump is, it's very disorienting to cover him because he's got these two separate sides now. And one of them is like this kind of wacky, funny Liberace. He's running around putting guilt in the Oval Office, and he goes down to Kennedy Center and he's rhapsodizing about how he's going to bring cats to Kennedy Center. And when he first saw cats, he didn't like it, but then he was looking at the glistening male and female bodies in gold tights, and he decided he really did like it. The women more, of course, and he's going to bring Les Mis, and he's going to just revamp Kennedy Center. So on the one hand, he applied to go to USC Film School. And then, I don't know if he didn't get in or he changed his mind, but he wanted to be a Hollywood producer. So part of him is running around Washington being a Hollywood producer. But then the other part is being very authoritarian. And he is very different than the first term, not only in terms of he knows more what he's doing, and he has people around him who are going to do exactly what he wants and not try and hamper him or work around him or stop him. They are fulfilling every crazy demand. But, Trump is very different because the entire decades I knew him, I thought, okay, well, the blessing or the silver lining here is that he did not seem interested in military expansion at all. He liked military things like parades, yeah. But basically, his attitude seemed to be, if you can build a waterfront hotel in North Korea or Gaza, that's what you should be doing. He wasn't, eager to have military conflict. But now he's turned into a total imperialist. He wants to take over Panama and crazy Canada, it's just craziness, and Greenland and Kennedy Center and DC, and now he's taken over the Middle East Department of Colombia. They've sent in a provost to kind of get whatever they think is wrong out of it. And so there is this imperialistic side that has developed in the second term that didn't exist in him before. So again, it's like scary when you're watching someone you've covered for a long time and they're metamorphosing into like a different thing, and that thing is a danger to democracy. Yeah.
Not to mention big law, not to mention the academy, not to mention media. This has been great. Thank you so much. Of course, I'm sure you expect this turnabout being fair play. You need to help us with your own confirm or deny. Are you ready? Confirm or deny, Ms. Dowd. You live in the house that JFK lived in when he was a senator.
Confirm. So here's the terrible thing about my house. JFK lived there when he was a bachelor senator, I think in 51. And it's on the tour of Georgetown. So every day a tour group comes by and they have the same rap and they start and they're like, yeah, JFK lived here when he was a bachelor, and then he began dating Jackie, and then Jackie said, let's get out of this, Dom. And they moved to a nice house down the street where I'm going to take you now. So I've now gotten in the habit of interrupting them before they get to the word Dom. I'm saying my house is not a Dom.
Confirm or deny, you forced Joe Biden out of his first presidential race.
Yes, I was the one who broke the story about Neil Kinnock. Biden took a Kinnock speech, and it's often described as a plagiarism story, but the plagiarism wasn't it. You can Obama or other politicians will do homages to other politicians. The weird part about it was Biden took a speech that was about Kinnock's life. So he said, and he thought he saw similarities with his own life, but he said, I played football. But when Kinnock said that, he meant soccer, and he was like, my relatives were in the mines, as Kinnock said. But then when I called Biden's campaign to say what relatives were in the mines, none could be turned up, really. So, it was just kind of a weird thing to do, and Biden loved to do that. He loved to kind of make up fake stories. It was kind of Irish and endearing sometimes, and other times a little weird.
The easier fame and riches have come to someone, the less likable they are. Confirm or deny?
I don't know. Is that too much of a generalization? Maybe.
Seems like a soft deny. I'm going to go with soft deny. Today is World Poetry Day, by the way. And besides all your love of literature, you talked a lot about your Irish roots. So confirm or deny, Yeats is a better poet than Eliot?
Confirm.
Confirm or deny, you sometimes have to pretend you like a subject when you don't?
Well, when I was a White House reporter, I had to pretend I liked writing about throw weights, and I didn't. Yeah, when you're a hard news reporter at the New York Times, you have to write about a lot of complicated things, that are hard to write about.
You got high with Willie Nelson.
Well, I did do a famous column when Denver legalized pot. I went and I I nibbled off the end of a pot candy bar, and I was in a hotel room, and a friend of mine, Alexander Stanley, who's the editor of Airmail and used to work at the Times, had come with me to explore this new world. And we were both literally paralyzed for 12 hours. And I was so paranoid. I was sure they were coming into the room to arrest me, and neither of us could move. So after 12 hours, we were able to get out of bed, and I took a glass of water and for some reason poured it into my New York Times computer and killed it. And I had not experimented with gummies or anything since.
I'm going with confirm on that.
Those who took advantage of help from our security staff with mobility on the way in